You think showing emotion makes you human. You think reacting proves you care. But here's the brutal truth. The moment you flinch, you lose. Every time you react to her mood, her silence, her test, you're handing her the remote control to your emotional state. And she's watching, carefully, to see if you'll crumble. Most men operate from emotional scarcity. She goes cold, they panic. She throws a test, they scramble to fix it. She withdraws, they chase harder. They think emotional responsiveness creates connection. They're wrong. Emotional reactivity creates repulsion. Picture this. She says something sharp. Maybe it's a dig about your job. Maybe she mentions another guy. Maybe she goes silent for 3 days. And you feel it, that spike of anxiety in your chest. Your fingers twitch toward your phone. You want to explain, defend, fix, chase. That urge, that's the moment you lose her. Because she's not testing your words, she's testing your center. She's asking a question without speaking it. Are you moved by me, or are you unmoved by everything? The man who reacts is the man she controls. The man who remains still is the man she can't stop thinking about. But here's what most men get wrong. They think stillness means suppression. They think being unmoved means being cold, robotic, emotionally dead. They clench their jaw and stuff their feelings down and call it strength. That's not stillness. That's a dam about to burst. And she will sense it. Real stillness isn't about hiding emotion. It's about mastering it. It's the ability to absorb every wave without flinching. Answer this. Are you reacting to her tests because you're desperate for her validation? Or are you still because you've already validated yourself? That's what we're unpacking here. Not how to fake composure, but how to become the kind of man who is genuinely unmoved. Not because he's suppressing his feelings, but because his emotional state doesn't hinge on her approval. Let me show you why reactivity destroys everything, and why stillness is the most magnetic force in attraction. Here's what you've been taught. Express your feelings, communicate openly, show vulnerability, be emotionally available, and if something bothers you, talk about it immediately. That's the lie every therapist, every relationship coach, every self-help book sells you. The lie designed to make you safe and sexless. Because here's the truth they won't tell you. Emotional availability isn't the same as emotional reactivity. Vulnerability isn't the same as neediness. And the man who reacts to every test, every mood swing, every emotional bait she throws, he's not communicating, he's begging. You think you're being honest, she hears desperation. You think you're being open, she sees weakness. You think you're showing you care, she feels your frame collapse. Stillness isn't about shutting down, it's about staying anchored while everything around you shifts. It's about being present without being controlled. Women don't fall for the man who is always available, always responsive, always emotionally pliable. They fall for the man who remains unmoved. Not because he's cold, but because he's complete. He doesn't need her validation to feel whole. Her moods don't shake his center. Her tests don't crack his frame. And that's what she's been searching for all along. A man she can't move. Because if she can move you, then the world can move you. And a man the world can move is not a man she can trust to lead. So when she goes silent, and you don't chase, you're not playing a game. You're demonstrating self-possession. When she tests you, and you don't flinch, you're not being cruel. You're being unmoved. And unmoved is what her nervous system craves. But here's the layer most men miss. Reactivity doesn't start with her. It starts with you. It starts with the wound you've been carrying. The need to be chosen. The fear of being abandoned. The belief that your value is determined by her response. And until you face that wound, you'll keep reacting. You'll keep handing her the keys to your emotional state. You'll keep losing frame the moment she tests. That's what stillness requires. Not suppression, but confrontation. Not hiding your feelings, but mastering the fear beneath them. Here's what's really happening beneath the reactivity. When she goes cold and you immediately text her, you think you're being caring. But here's the truth you don't want to hear. You're not texting because you care. You're texting because you're terrified. Terrified that her silence means she's losing interest. Terrified that if you don't respond, she'll disappear. Terrified that you're not enough to hold her attention without constant effort. That terror, that's the wound. The one you've been running from your entire life. The wound that says you have to earn love. That you have to perform to be chosen. That your value is contingent on someone else's approval, and every time you react to her test, you're not just losing her attraction, you're reinforcing that wound. You're telling yourself, once again, that you're not enough on your own. That you need her validation to feel whole. that your emotional state is at the mercy of her moods. Picture this. You're a child. Your mother's approval was conditional. Your father's love was something you had to earn. You learned your safety depends on managing other people's emotions, on making sure they're happy with you. That's the wound, and it's running the show every time you react. Because when she tests you now, when she goes cold or silent or sharp, your nervous system doesn't see an adult woman playing attraction dynamics. It sees the primary caregiver whose love you couldn't afford to lose. It sees the parent whose approval determined your survival. And it panics. So you text, you explain, you chase, you fix. Not because it's the right move strategically, but because your wound is screaming that if you don't react, you'll be abandoned. But here's the brutal paradox. The more you react, the more you guarantee the very abandonment you fear. Because she's not your mother. She's not your father. She's a woman testing whether you've healed that wound or whether you're still running from it. And the man who is still running, the man who needs her to stay happy so he can feel safe, that man is not attractive. That man is a project. That man is someone she has to manage, not someone she can surrender to. But the wound isn't just about abandonment. It's about identity. Most men have built their entire sense of self on external validation, on being the good guy, the reliable one, the one who makes people happy, the one who fixes problems and smooths over conflict and never rocks the boat. And when a woman tests that identity, when she refuses to be appeased, when she doesn't reward your effort with warmth and affection, it's not just uncomfortable, it's annihilating. Because if you're not the man who makes her happy, then who are you? That's the question. Who are you when she's not validating you? If you don't have an answer, you'll keep reacting. But if you've done the work, if you faced that wound and reclaimed your center, then her tests are just noise. That completeness is what she's been searching for. Not a man who performs strength, a man who embodies it. Your reactivity isn't about her, it's about the wound. And until you heal it, you'll keep losing frame. But the moment you face that wound, the moment you reclaim your emotional sovereignty, everything changes. Stillness works as a psychological force, not as a tactic. When you remain unmoved by her tests, you're sending a message to her nervous system. I am not controlled by your moods. I am complete. And she hears it, louder than words. Because human beings detect authenticity at a primal level, we sense pretending. We sense authenticity. When you're genuinely still, when you're calm is a state, not an act, it creates a gravitational pull. Stillness is rare. Most men flinch at discomfort. They scramble to fix her mood, but you don't move. She goes cold, you remain warm but unbothered. She tests, you stay centered. And in that stillness, you become the most interesting thing in her world. Attraction thrives on uncertainty, on mystery. The man who reacts is predictable, controllable. The man who remains still is a puzzle. She throws a test and he doesn't flinch. She goes silent and he doesn't panic. Her mind works. Who is this man? Why isn't he reacting? That curiosity keeps you in her thoughts, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're genuinely unmoved. Stillness is attractive because it's safe, not boring safe, primal safe. When you remain calm in her emotional storms, you prove you're strong enough to lead even when she's testing. That's what she needs. Not a man who matches her emotional intensity, but a man who remains grounded while she processes hers. Not a man who reacts to her chaos, but a man who absorbs it without losing his center. If she can move you with a cold text, if she can control your emotional state with her behavior, she can't trust you to lead. Her biology is wired to seek a man who is unmoved, a man whose calm is a state, not a performance. Stillness signals this mastery, completion, that your care doesn't come with conditions, that you're still because you've already validated yourself. When she realizes you're not faking, when she sees your stillness as a state of being, attraction deepens. She stops testing and starts surrendering, not because you played it cool, but because you became the man who doesn't need to. Here's the paradox. The less you need her to respond, the more she will. The less you chase, the more she pursues. The more unmoved you are, the more she's moved. That's not manipulation, that's psychology, that's the law. Now the tactics. How do you practice stillness? Stillness is not a technique you deploy in the moment. It's a state you cultivate when she's not watching. You don't become unmoved by white-knuckling composure. You become unmoved by doing the inner work when she's not around. Sit with your discomfort. When she goes cold and you feel the urge to text, don't suppress it. Notice the anxiety. Notice the wound screaming that you need to fix this or you'll lose her. Ask yourself, is that true? Or is my wound panicking? It's the wound, always. Her test isn't about you. She's processing her emotions. She's testing if you're solid. React and you fail. If you stay still, you pass. Practice the pause. When you feel the urge to chase, to explain, to fix, pause. Breathe. Ground yourself. Know this. Your value is not contingent on her response. You are complete whether she texts back or not. From that grounded place, choose your response. Not from fear, but from stillness. Build your center outside of her. If your emotional world revolves around her attention, you will react. If you have a mission independent of her, her tests become noise. Fill your life, work on your craft, train your body, build your brotherhood, chase your vision, make her orbit that, not the other way around. Practice stillness in small moments. She's late, don't comment. She cancels plans, say, no problem, catch you later. She mentions an ex, stay neutral, watch what happens. She either escalates to get a rise, or softens because she realizes you're unmoved. Either way, you're winning. You're staying anchored in your game. When you engage emotionally, do it from abundance, not scarcity. Know the difference between availability and neediness. Availability means you're open, present, capable of depth. Neediness means you're using emotion to control her response. When you share, share because you want to, not because you need her reaction. When you're vulnerable, be vulnerable because you're strong enough to be, not as a strategy. Stillness means emotional sovereignty. You feel what you feel, but you don't let it control you. You don't let her dictate your state. Stillness is not a destination, it's a practice. You won't nail it every time. You'll react, you'll chase, you'll lose frame. That's part of the process. Because mastery is about noticing when you fall and choosing to stand back up. When you react, don't spiral, notice it, learn from it. Ask yourself, what wound got triggered? What do I need to heal? That's the work. Becoming strong, cultivating stillness, not performing, not faking. The more you do this work, the more unmoved you become. Not because you're suppressing emotion, but because you've healed the wounds that made you reactive. When you reach that state, when you're genuinely still, not as a tactic, but as a way of being, you become magnetic in ways chasing never could. You're no longer the man who needs her validation. You're the man who is complete. That's the man she can't stop thinking about. Here's your challenge. The next time she tests, don't react. Feel the urge. Notice the wound. Choose stillness, not because it's a strategy, but because you're reclaiming your center. That's emotional mastery. That's the art of being unmoved. That's what makes you unforgettable. I'll see you in the next one. Deploying silence as a psychological weapon.